Hi Jade. So I'm about halfway through watching your video and you're just talking about how the things around you really shape who you are and who you become and how important your surroundings are and your friend group and your family are into shaping you. It made me think back to the book Everything is Obvious that you introduced me to a while ago, where he was talking about the difference of organ donor rates in Europe and how you would have sort of expected that it would be sort of broken up between, some people have higher organ donor rates, some people have lower, but it's not like too huge of a difference. Whereas what happened was, or the results they got, in truth, showed that some countries had like 99% donation rates and the other countries had about 0.5. Ridiculous amounts of disparity. I mean, those numbers are totally made up off the top of my head, but in that range of ridiculousness. And they were trying to figure out what is the difference between these two countries. Why this? And the man presenting this problem to his students said that his students, came up with different hypotheses about why this might be true. And they figured maybe it's a just really big cultural difference. There's some place that really values having your body intact upon birth, and there's some community that really values giving back upon birth. And so he gave his students a bit more information. He said, okay, choose 2 countries, and I'll tell you those countries, one of them is ridiculously high birth rates, or organ donor rates, birth rates, and one of them is really low. And those 2 countries are Austria and Germany. And that kind of stumped them a bit more because they were thinking, something to do with World War II? And they came up with all sorts of fascinating theories as to why this disparity was happening. And in the end, he explained to them what was going on, and the difference between Austria and Germany had nothing to do with their culture, had nothing to do with their history. It all had to do with the fact that in one of the countries, the default option is that you're an organ donor. In the other one, it's an opt-in program. And the step that it takes to opt in or opt out is the difference between 90-something% and under 10%. And the reason that ties in my mind into the same issues of family dynamics and friend dynamics is that the social group that you construct around yourself is kind of your default. It is simply easiest to go with the flow. There is a reason we have herb mentality. Yes, because we all need to grow and put off fantastic aromatic essences. There we go. Herb mentality, yes, good. So one of the really important things to do as you're building your life is to look around you, look at the people that you're with, look at your family, look at your colleagues, look at your school, and try and figure out if the people around you are the kind of people you want to be. So I'm going to go off on a slight tangent. I've been trying to read Divergent, the book, and I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about it. The cover says, one choice could change your life. And in some cases that's true, but I really feel like the whole one choice is going to change your life is way overblown. And I also feel like the idea that you are what you are when you're at your best is completely and totally false. You're shaped by the forces around you that carry you through life on the days when you don't give a shit. Because a personality is a fantastic, huge, and complex thing. And I don't think it's ridiculous to say that it's too much for one person alone to develop. Which is why when you're making friends, when you're building your community, you're not just deciding who you're going to hang out with today. You're deciding who you want to build your personality with you. It's like you're a baby, and your friends are all putting their own thoughts into creating the love baby that is your personality. Unless that's creepy, which it kind of is. This ties into all sorts of things. It ties into the class that I was just taking on farming self-care. It's fantastic to take the class that teaches you what to do not to hurt yourself. But way more important than that is to have a community around you of people who also don't want to hurt themselves. Because the thing is that you're not going to hurt yourself on the day when you're thinking, oh man, I shouldn't hurt myself, I should go through all the practices that my teacher gave me and be super on top of everything. The day you're on top of the world is not the day you're going to jump off your tractor and break your leg. The day you're going to jump off your tractor and break your leg is going to be the day when all of your insecurities weigh in on you, and if you're surrounded by people who are telling you to push harder, it is not feasible to your body to expect it to be some kind of superhero that will push to be its best even on the worst days. Not every day is your best day, by definition. And the advice that says just to push yourself harder, to work a little bit more, to aim a little bit higher, to have better restrictions on yourself, to put up motivative posters all over your walls. They're good ideas, but if they're trying to combat the community around you, they're just not going to be that effective. And the most effective way to keep yourself progressing on your worst days is to be surrounded by a community of people who are working on projects, who are passionate, motivating you to work again without being a dick about it. And I should probably define dick about it a little bit better, but I think I'm gonna save that for a bit later. I just finished a video to complete the saga of the art class. I now have this thingamawhatsit that I drew. I am very proud of it. So there are a number of things that I thought after watching your video. And the first is, looking at that picture, I really, really like it. I wasn't expecting to, because when I first drew it, it just didn't feel good at the moment that, I loved the process of drawing it, but I didn't like it in the process, and the more time that goes by since I finished it, the better it looks. And that's really, really cool, and it's also not the first time that's happened to me. I've drawn like a couple of really tiny little fan comic things that looked terrible when I finished them, but for the next couple of days I kept going back and looking at them because I was like, dude, I finished something. I never finished something. Because I've spent years with like a bajillion ideas buzzing around in my head. They're so much cooler in my head that I figure I should just, it's not worth it to put it out because it's just way more fun to have in my head and it's not as cool in the real world. And I mean, no one's gonna see it anyway, so there's just not really any point. But there totally is, because it's a fantastic feeling. Sorry, this connects to a bajillion things at the same time. So the thing in your brain that tells you that there's no point in doing something because you don't enjoy it is just not a reason not to do something. So for example, there are all sorts of writing advisory something that try to tell you that being an author means enjoying writing, and that if you don't enjoy writing, you really shouldn't write. I kind of hate the process of writing. I find it really infuriating. I hate sitting down, I hate putting my thoughts out, I hate using words to put my thought out. I'm not a very word-based person. I like thinking in images and sounds way more. But that doesn't mean that it's not worth writing. Because I think that really the best piece of advice for writers is, the best part of writing is to have written. If you're doing it for the feeling that you get afterward, that's fine. Getting caught up in the output and not caught up in the process, that doesn't mean that I don't know if I have a finish to that sentence, so I might just leave it there and move on to one of the other things that I wanted to comment on. You mentioned your friend who's an artist and how you always thought that artists were born artists. So a lot of what I've been doing today is pining over the fact that I'm going to UMass instead of a better school. And because yesterday I was having a conversation with my friend and they were talking about how all of my famous British comedians went to the same college at the same time, made their friends there, and that's how they got a start, like Mitchell and Webb, other people who have names. Yeah, names. And there's this thing in my brain that says, you're not going to college at the right place in London, so you'll never be able to attain the kind of really cool stuff that you see them doing that you really, really want to learn how to do yourself. And there's also, for the last semester, I'm interested in the degree that I'm learning about. I'm really interested in environmental design. I'm really interested in permaculture, in growing green things using sustainable systems, and spreading green growth throughout the urban environment. Like, that's something I'm really passionate about. But school has a way of just automatically killing passion, and so instead of thinking about my classes in sustainability, I've been feeling like I wish that I'd majored in theater. And that feels shameful to admit, because first off, it feels like a frivolous major, and this isn't something I feel about people who are theater majors. All the ones who I've met are really cool, but the internalized idea of myself as a theater major tries to tell me that I don't belong there. That's the stupidest thing you could do. Are you really going to give up a bachelor's in science to go do theater? Really? Really? That's what you're paying tuition in college for? To learn how to act? You've never acted before on stage. Are you serious? Is there something wrong with you? And furthermore, throughout my entire childhood, I thought that both acting and dancing and singing were things that you were born with or you weren't. And so it wasn't until like last year, when I was either 18 or 19, that I finally found a vocal coach and started working with them, because until then, I didn't realize vocal coaches existed. I thought that every pop singer in the world was just born that way. And if you don't sound that good when you start, too bad. Better go find something else to do. And so at this point, I'm starting to break down a lot of my ideals about what I believe I have no chance of being. So I think that my brain is opening up more to larger possibilities of what I can do, because all of the things that my brain is trying to tell me is complete and total bullshit. Nobody pops out of the womb ready to take on the world. And so I think that the first steps to doing something that you really love, to admit that you legitimately care, and the next is to get lost on the internet trying to figure out how to do theater, apparently.